So the order I've got is me, to Diane, to Kevin, to Ron, to Steve, to Terry. I'm going to do a quick topic on COVID, and I'm going to say I'm executive favor. Good morning, everybody. I am proud to be joined today by NJ Transit's board chair and the commissioner of the Department of Transportation, Diane Gutierrez Scotchetti, by the president and CEO of NJ Transit, Kevin Corbett, Amtrak president, Steve Gardner, and Terry Ferriss, the Positive Train Control project manager for Parsons. And I am especially honored that we are joined this morning by the head of the Federal Rail Administration, Ron Batory. I also want to acknowledge that guy right there, because we don't get there without our brothers and sisters in labor, the president of Smart Transportation Division, Local 60, Jerome Johnson. Jerome, honored to have you. And I know they wanted to be here, but there's a lot going on in Trenton today, so Senate Transportation Chair Pat Dignan I want to give a shout out to, and Assembly Transportation Chair Dan Benson. Before we get to the reason why we're here, and I promise you, given the wind coming in, we'll go through this rather snappily. I wanted to give a COVID update, and we will have a 3 o'clock press conference with the Commissioner of Health later today to go into COVID matters in more detail. But the numbers today: 3,975 positives. Sadly, 44 more brothers and sisters who have lost their lives. There are 3,582 in our hospital systems, 715 are in intensive care, 480 are on ventilators. Yesterday, 397 people went in to the hospital with COVID and 461 left. The spot positivity is just barely over 10%, and the rate of transmission is 1.03. I say all that, number one, because those are the facts, but number two, this is the first day in a long time that each of those numbers is better than yesterday. Now, I don't think that makes a trend by any stretch of the imagination, but I think we should celebrate with all of our hospitals reporting those numbers in each case are better than the ones from yesterday. One other unrelated topic, although not unrelated to Diane and Kevin, I will say definitively that as of 1 p.m. today, we will lift the storm-related state of emergency. More on that again when we gather at 3 o'clock. So there's a quote attributed to the great philosopher and sometime baseball manager Charles Dillon Casey Stengel, and he said this: "They said it couldn't be done, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way." As usual, Casey had it figured out, and by the way, I'm sure Yogi would have said something, if not Casey, to inform our gathering today. I am incredibly proud to announce that NJ Transit and Parsons have completed all the requirements for the installation, the testing, and the training of Positive Train Control, and the NJ Transit PTC system today received its certification from Administrator Ron Batory. This team checked every box. They have completed installation of PTC equipment on hundreds of locomotives and along all 12 commuter rail lines, serving 116 municipalities and covering more than 1,000 miles of track. They've coordinated a system that is interoperable with the 10 other railroads that share New Jersey's rail network. They have performed more than 10,000 tests and made in excess of 35,000 demonstration runs to ensure the system works properly. And they have trained more than 2,600 employees on the proper operation and maintenance of the system, among much more. In the months ahead, as our post-COVID future takes shape, hundreds of thousands of New Jerseyans will once again turn to NJ Transit trains to get to work, to get to school, please God, to get to a sporting event or a show, or to just get through their day. And NJ Transit will be ready to get them to their destinations more safely than ever before. What they'll find is an NJ Transit that spent the past months preparing for their return. No one is going to have to wonder how NJ Transit spent the time. They will be able literally to see it. This has been nothing, Ron was making this point to me privately with Kevin, this has been nothing short of a Herculean task for NJ Transit and the Parsons teams. From Diane and Kevin to Terry, and through you, Terry, an acknowledgement of Parsons CEO Chuck Harrington, and on down to the women and men on the lines. Each and every single one of them deserves our thanks for their doggedness and our congratulations on a job well done. And I'll take a point of personal privilege right now and give them all, please join me, a big shout out. To appreciate the job the NJ Transit team completed, we need to step back and remember where things stood not very long ago and what we inherited when we came into office. When our administration took office, almost 3 years ago, January of 2018, the installation of PTC, by the way, put aside the requirements for testing and training, just the installation, stood at only 12% complete. 12% complete, even though they had 8 years in the administration before us to get the job done. No one, and when I say no one, I think you'll all join me in this, I literally mean no one thought NJ Transit was going to make the federally mandated December 31st, 2018, installation deadline. NJ Transit and Parsons had 11 months to do essentially 9 years worth of work. News stories had already given up on our meeting the deadline. Instead of talking about whether we'd make the deadline, the stories were all focused on what penalties the federal government would levy for being late. Kevin and his team pushed forward to meet that looming installation deadline. It wasn't easy, and we asked for a lot of patience from NJ Transit's customers, but they got it done. And they got it done at the end of 2018 with 2 weeks to spare. You talk about history repeating itself. To reach today, NJ Transit and Parsons had 24 months to do another 4 years worth of work. As in the last time, we read stories that assumed failure. As in the last time, this team ignored the odds makers and kept the focus on the job before them. And just like the last time, a looming PTC deadline is now met, and it's met, you betcha, with 2 weeks to spare. Our commitment to meeting this deadline and ensuring the safety of every rider along NJ Transit's rail network is just part, and I say part, of our overall commitment to NJ Transit's customers. What does that commitment include? Let me give you a few examples. It includes our efforts to train and deploy more rail engineers to give us the deep bench of professionals we need to ensure the safe and on-time operations of our rail lines. That commitment includes the hundreds of millions of dollars in orders for new passenger cars. It includes hiring new bus operators and purchasing new buses. It includes our successful efforts to receive the federal government's partnership in the replacement of the Portal Bridge, and I thank the President in particular for that, and I look forward to working with the Federal Transit Administration and our congressional delegation to finalize a full funding grant agreement. NJ Transit has provided all the documents and obtained board approvals required by the FTA. Congress is currently, as we speak, undertaking its 30-day review. And just as we have valued, Ron, our relationship with you and Secretary Chow and the rest of the team, we are also hopeful for working with the incoming Biden administration and Transportation Secretary-designate Pete Buttigieg to see that the long-delayed and badly needed Hudson Tunnel project advances. And lastly, NJ Transit's commitment includes, during this period, the many upgrades being made to platforms and stations across NJ Transit's rail network, including, and Jerome, you and I were together, I think it was last week, right? The revitalization of Newark Penn Station, which is going to be, once again, a gem. These projects and more will move forward under Diane's and Kevin's continued leadership. Today, we will keep our attention on remaking NJ Transit, or together rather, we'll keep our attention on remaking NJ Transit into a model for mass transit that is customer-centered, performance-driven, and future-focused. If I may, allow me to close with one thought. We know the incidents that have happened without PTC, but we'll probably never know the ones that won't happen thanks to PTC. We'll now measure safety not by accidents, but by an even more important metric. Every parent who gets home safely after a long day at work. Every student who arrives to class to take their final exams. And every heroic frontline worker who arrives at her or his job to help others in need in these desperate moments. To Diane, Kevin, and Terry, the entire team, congratulations again and thank you. And Ron, thank you again for your partnership and for being here today to certify our efforts. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce a great leader, the chair of the NJ Transit Board and the Commissioner of the Department of Transportation, Diane Gutierrez Scotchetti. Diane.
Good morning, or actually good afternoon. You know, it's hard to believe we're standing here today to have this conversation. And so as chair of the board, I see my job a little differently. As chair of the board, the first thing I would like to do is to thank the staff of New Jersey Transit, Eric DeLeo and Megan Strickland and their team, who worked so tirelessly for so long to help us deliver this contract. To Jim Sincaglia and the team in Rail Ops, who took over this project once it was getting ready to be operational, how important it was that their commitments stood and how we worked together as a team to deliver it. And to take a moment to remember Ray Kenny, who came in to help us deliver this, and unfortunately we lost to COVID. Let's not forget the time he spent with us and the time he worked to develop relationships and help us pull this project forward. None of that would work well if they didn't have a good leader in Kevin. Kevin Corbett has dedicated his 35 months, Kevin, to PTC and to making sure that we delivered on a promise to our customers of a safe and reliable system. I want to say a shout out to my vice chair, Cedric Fulton, who is desperately trying to get here. I'm pretty sure he's going to think this was like an initiation trick to find this location. But Cedric is a phenomenal leader in and of himself, with a history in transportation that has certainly helped guide the board in his time since the beginning of this year. To Charles Harrington and the team from Parsons and Alstom, it was with Charles's help and the governor's continued support that we cemented a relationship middle of this year that really brought us to today. And that leaves the last person on my list, and that's the governor. You know, the governor uses a lot of sports analogies. You know, we have great teams, we have great coaches and managers, but every team needs a great owner, an owner that believes in the team, that invests in the team, and that stands by the team. And the governor never stopped believing in our ability to hit the PTC goal. And that is what kept us going. You know, you want to make your owner happy. You want to hit that home run. And I would almost be grateful to say this was a grand slam. We're going to run the bases today. But tomorrow we're going to go back to the job that is ahead of us, which is to continue to improve New Jersey Transit. I've been heard to say that I will never use the letters P, T, or C again. But when I thought about it last night, I said, no, that's probably not the right approach. I will use them, but the P will be for persistence. The persistence, which means, by the way, firm or obstinate continuance in a course of action in spite of difficulty or opposition. This team showed persistence. The T will be for tenacity, the quality or fact of being very determined, and there is no doubt that we were. And constancy, the quality of being enduring and unchanging. And so from today, this team will keep its constancy to being the best and delivering the best in all of the elements of delivering a statewide transportation system. I can't thank the team enough. Kevin, Ron Batori, the governor, Jerome Johnson, and his employees who help us run this train system every day. We thank you as a board. I thank you as a board chair and the Commissioner of Transportation. And with that, I will turn it back to the governor.
Thank you, Diane, for your leadership. I also want to acknowledge Brian Wilton from our office, who's been bird dogging this every step of the way. Brian, good to have you. So I've been talking a lot lately about Diane and standing up and strongly on her behalf, and we saw it again this week. Never mind achieving the success of positive train control, but a storm that was handled masterfully, Diane, by you and your team, and I want to again give you a shout out. I had an emotional exchange with Kevin last night, and two things come to mind. Number one, I thought of Ray Kenny. I thought of speaking to his brother the day after he passed and hearing about Ray's life outside of NJ Transit, the part of Ray that I never got a chance to know. May he rest in peace. And Kevin, I'll tell you, you have taken so many incomings from so many people, from so many sides. And this day is a big day for all of us, but it is especially a big day for this guy. Please help me welcome the boss at NJ Transit, Kevin Corbett.
Thank you, Governor, for those very kind words, and Diane and Governor both for recalling Ray Kenny and his great contribution. Certainly wish he was here with us. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Certainly, I have to thank Governor Murphy for all his support, not just that you've given to New Jersey Transit, but back in 2018, we had to make tough decisions that impacted service, which were necessary to make the event today possible. And Governor, you took the heat while encouraging us to get it done, while helping push it forward every step of the way, and we all cannot thank you enough for that. Also, I want to thank Commissioner Scotchetti. I would say, Diane, you were a key partner in this monumental endeavor. Your skill in helping us navigate many of the decision points that may be painful to recall, but they were so critical in helping us overcome many of the daunting obstacles that we faced at the time, and I cannot thank you enough for that. I would be remiss if I didn't also recognize some of our partners here with us today, all of whom have played an integral role in our successful meeting of this year-end deadline. As the governor said, FRA Administrator Ron Vittori, who also co-chairs the Northeast Corridor Commission with me. I am so grateful to Ron and his team, Carolyn, for everything that you did to get us to this point, and your support and guidance over the last few years. Our New Jersey and our nation have been extremely fortunate to have had you at the helm of the FRA at this critical time. I'd also like to thank my friend of many years, Amtrak President Stephen Gardner, for his partnership in restoring the ties with New Jersey Transit after years of contentious relationships before we arrived in 2018. Today is a sterling example of what we can achieve for the riding public when we work together. As everyone knows, Amtrak's Northeast Corridor is a key rail line in our rail network, so working closely with Amtrak on the interoperability of our respective PTC systems was critical to the successful implementation of PTC. And of course, I also want to add my thanks to Parsons Chairman and CEO Chuck Harrington, as well as Alstom Senior Vice President Jerome Valut and their team for the commitment of the time and resources needed to get this done. We are happy to have Terry Fetters from Parsons, who will speak in a minute, to join us today on their behalf. Internally, this project literally took the work of hundreds of New Jersey Transit employees who have worked tirelessly to ensure we successfully meet this deadline. I'd like to recognize a few of the key members of our staff. Jim Sincaglia, Senior Vice President and General Manager, Rail Ops. Jimmy, fantastic. Eric DeLeo, our Senior Vice President of Capital Programs. Charlie Tomaszewski, Deputy General Manager, Rail Operations Equipment. Lisa Fanning, Deputy General Manager of Rail Infrastructure Engineering. Robin Prasad, Chief of Project Management. And last, but certainly not least, Fred Chittister, our PTC Program Manager. It has been the hard work and commitment of these and all of the people assigned to work on this project, particularly so many of them of our team right here who work at the MMC, that brings us to here today. Make no mistake, we accomplished what no one thought was possible. As the governor said, since I joined New Jersey Transit in February of 2018, we restructured the project team, created a war room, and good-naturedly named the project Project Seabiscuit. At that time, PTC was the infamous 12% complete towards the December 31st, 2018 interim milestone. Like that famous horse, New Jersey Transit was a long shot to make the interim milestone back in 28, much less successfully achieving the system certification before December of this year. Yet, like Seabiscuit, here we are crossing the finish line by a nose, and I couldn't be more proud of everyone's effort to get us here. To be clear, meeting this deadline in less than 3 years took nothing less than a Herculean effort. Not many understand the complexity of the system, particularly in our territory. In many ways, it felt like walking into mission control of the 10-year moonshot program on year 8, only to find out it was only 12% installed, and you had less than 3 years to get someone to the moon and back. We had to install hundreds of specialized customized system components, including radio, transponders, onboard computers and displays, and control centers, onboard trains, and along 326 miles of track. We had to divert extensive resources for testing on a complex network that includes a combination of 19th and 20th century legacy railroads that built this country. It's not just our 12 rail lines, it's interoperability with other freight and passenger railroads, operating with different systems, arguably making New Jersey Transit the most complex rail system in the country. Now that the country has PTC under its belt, Ron, I know Administrator Vittori shares the view that we need to look forward to the creation of a unified, standardized national system, call it PTC 2.0 or whatever, similar to that existing in the aviation industry. I can assure you, with all the experience we've gained over the last few years, myself, Diane, and the governor are glad to play a leading role in working with the FRA and Congress in that effort. In many projects I've been involved with in my career, I've found it's easy to lose sight of the ultimate objective. With PTC, it is to save lives. As my team knows, on a personal level, it was more than an important project with a critical deadline. I often reminded them that Justin Semser, a classmate of my sons at the Naval Academy, would have been alive today serving his country as a young Marine officer if this system had been in place in 2015. Justin was on his way home to New York from the Academy and died in a tragic accident outside of Philadelphia back in May 2015. His loss is still remembered excuse me, by many of his fellow officers from 17th Company, and I always reaffirm my dedication to completing this project successfully in his memory. I believe when you put PTC in that context, you can appreciate why our project team delivered. It wasn't just for New Jersey Transit. It was for all our family members, neighbors, and friends who ride on this busiest part of America's rail system. Before I wrap up, I would like to thank our customers for their continued patience and understanding over the last few years. As I touched on earlier, we had to make some very difficult operational decisions that impacted our rail service and obviously our customers in order to meet this critical deadline. These decisions were never made lightly. We cannot thank you enough for hanging in there with us to help deliver PTC on schedule. In closing, I want to thank again everyone here for joining us today, our employees, our project partners, Ron, Stephen, Terry, Jerome, on behalf of Labor, for all you've done to help us meet this deadline of this critically important safety enhancement. I also want to thank our New Jersey congressional delegation for their always advocating on behalf of New Jersey Transit down in Washington. And again, as always, Governor and Diane, thank you for your continued support.
Congratulations again, Kevin. Thank you, and thank you for reminding us so emotionally that this is, in fact, today a matter of life and death. And we now will have a level of safety and assurance that we have long aspired to. I mentioned President Trump, and I remain grateful for his personal involvement in moving the Portal North Bridge forward. I mentioned Secretary Elaine Chao, and I thank her for her partnership and support. But we have a guy here today, the Administrator of the Federal Rail Administration, who may be the most important person as it relates to transportation in this administration. He's a guy who has spent decades in rail, most notably for me at least, running Conrail for 2 decades. He's a gentleman, he's a great leader, he's been our partner in this. Please help me welcome the Administrator of the Federal Rail Administration, Ron Vittori. Ron?
Good afternoon, everyone. Before I lead into remarks about why we're here today, I want to recognize the men and women of New Jersey Transit that operate, maintain, and lead its network system on a daily basis, 7 by 24. Railroading is a people business. They are a stellar example of that. You can have the best track, the best signal systems, best locomotives, best technology, but if you don't have the best people, it's all for naught. And New Jersey Transit has the best people, and that's why they achieved what they are about to announce today. However, in making up that organization, which is an excellent organization, organizations are only as good as the leaders that lead them. And those leaders, many of which are in this room, but those that come out most in my mindset this afternoon is your Governor Murphy, Commissioner Diane, and naturally the Executive Director, Kevin Corbett. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Federal Railroad Administration and the leader of positive train control, not only in relationship to this project, but the entire United States, and that's Carolyn Haywood Williams. Carolyn, you want to stand up and just say? Let me just share this with you, is PTC does not replace safety. Safety resides with the people that operate and maintain and lead a railroad. PTC, though, is a risk reduction system that should a person make a mistake, the risk reduction system will overtake and correct that mistake. That is the value of positive train control. Railroading is not unsafe. The facts speak for themselves. But if you make one mistake, it can be your last. One thing that Kevin brought to the NJT organization, which was very apparent, and our chemistry mixed extremely well from the onset, was he demanded communication, collaboration, and concentration among all those stakeholders and participants associated with the PTC initiative in New Jersey Transit. One thing that he demanded was facts. I could relate to that very well because I often say, without facts, it's just another opinion. And he brought that to the table every time. He was also cost conscious. And as I often relate to cost, and I think it's a very important dimension of any business initiative, but it's not how much money you spend, it's how wisely you spend that money. And last has to do with safety and the system itself. And at PTC is a critical piece and new dimension of safety in the railroad industry, but it does not take the place of the men and women that operate and maintain the industry every day. With that, in closing remarks, I wish you all a safe and healthy holiday. As the governor said, this is our first offense, if you will. Keep it on. Stay clear of crowds. And good hygiene. And as I sometimes add, don't kiss and hug strangers. So, the other thing I want to share with you, which is safety related to all of us in the United States, stay clear of railroad right-of-ways. And if you're driving an automobile, be cautious and aware of that grade crossing. Now, naturally in New Jersey, much of the railroad is elevated, so it doesn't have as many crossings as perhaps other states, but it has a lot more trains on those few tracks that do have crossings. And there is risk there. And it's something that we have to be conscious of. To put it in perspective, Since we've been keeping track of it since 1975, we've had over 82,000 fatalities in this country, over 20,000 injuries. Those two numbers alone fill up, if you will, MetLife Stadium and the Prudential Center. It's a huge number. Please stay clear of railroad right-of-way and be cautious when you approach those crossings, and have a prosperous 2021. In ending, I've brought with me a document of which there will be others to follow for the record, but I'm very pleased. I'm going to ask that I give it to the governor on this accomplishment of New Jersey Transit being a certified PTC railroad with 2 weeks to spare.
That's huge, man. Thank you, man. You want to take a shot here? Everybody want to join? All right. Come on down. Grab this. Yeah, we'll put our masks on. Thank you, man. Okay, great. Last one. Don't lose this. Great work, Ron. Ron, we're so excited to have you today. Diane invited you over for Christmas, which I think is a great testament that you've got a lot of friends here in New Jersey. Thank you so much for your partnership and leadership. Carolyn, same right to you, and it means more than you know, and also that you're here today. I know you don't do this very often, so it means a lot to us that you're physically here. You know, for reasons I'll never understand, we inherited kind of an imponderable adversarial relationship between NJ Transit and Amtrak. For the life of me, I'll never understand, given how much we depend on each other, that it was that way. And I'm happy to say it is long ago no longer that way. They're an essential, existential in many respects, partner of NJ Transit in our entire transportation and infrastructure reality. And it's a real treat today to have the president of Amtrak with us. Please help me welcome Stephen Gardner. Steve.
Thank you, Governor. And on behalf of our chairman, Tony Kosha, and our CEO, Bill Flynn, let me extend a tremendous congratulations to you, Governor, you, Commissioner, and Kevin, and everyone at NJT. It really is not an understatement to say that Kevin, with the leadership and support of the governor and his team, rescued this program. They rescued it those several years ago, and we, as Amtrak and as a long-term partner with New Jersey Transit, have lots of experience with railroads all over the United States achieving positive train control implementation. There's probably no agency that had farther to climb and yet climbed it with such clear determination and accomplishment. And it is a true testament to Kevin, you, yourself, and your team, Fred, Jimmy, Eric, all of the folks at NJT who made this possible today. And let me just congratulate you not only from Amtrak, but really on behalf of the riding public, our customers and our employees, who will be safer as a result of this technology. Both Amtrak and New Jersey Transit know that positive train control saves lives. And it's a huge accomplishment to get to this point. And representative of the kind of things that Amtrak and New Jersey Transit are working together on generally to improve safety, drive customer service, create capacity, and improve reliability across our combined network. New Jersey Transit is Amtrak's largest tenant on our Northeast corridor. We have the biggest collection of trains that we operate together, and we've been operating positive train control equipped service here since December 12th. I'm very pleased to say it's going very well. Let me also just recognize Administrator Batory and his team, Carolyn, for their tremendous collaboration with all of us, with the whole industry. I know personally how detailed and focused Ron has been in working with New Jersey Transit to help achieve this day, and his support and leadership across the industry has been essential to today's event and to the accomplishment. So with that, congratulations, Kevin. Great work. Lots still to do. Amtrak is always going to be your partner in doing it. We look forward to bringing even more results, better operations, better value for our customers and the public in the future. Thanks very much.
I want to thank Stephen for being here and also make it crystal clear that the improvement of the relationship, which is now an outstanding one, is due both to what NJ Transit has done better and differently, but also Amtrak. You guys have been great. So to you and Tony, your chair, who's a Jersey guy and former chair of the Port Authority, and to all your colleagues, Stephen, thank you for everything you do for and with New Jersey. As I invite Terry to come up, several of us, Ron and I and others, were having a conversation before we got on stage. I don't think I've ever been a participant before or since in a more impactful 15-minute phone conversation than I was involved in September with a group of folks up on this stage. It was really a seminal, we got to come together and get this thing done before December 31st. And Parsons was right in the middle of that call, and I want to again give a shout out to Chuck Harrington, their CEO, but representing Parsons today, he's been the project manager for them on PTC in New Jersey. If you look at his resume, he's done this for Parsons around the world, literally. Please help me welcome Terry Ferriss. Terry? Thanks, man.
Thank you, Governor Murphy, for the opportunity to speak at today's event, marking an achievement and a major milestone for the safety of New Jersey Transit's rail operations. On behalf of Parsons and our subcontractor, Alstom, we're proud to have partnered with New Jersey Transit and the Federal Railroad Administration to bring the New Jersey Transit Positive Train Control Program to this all-important milestone and achieving certification. We demonstrated tremendous teamwork and an unyielding focus on a quality delivery, particularly in the last 10 months as we combined team, worked safely through this COVID pandemic. Starting with the entrance into revenue service on the segment for the Morristown line in mid-March, we progressively completed and entered extended revenue service on all 376 miles of New Jersey Transit territory and Conrail line. No shortcuts were ever taken in assuring that the positive train control system worked effectively and efficiently. This milestone also could not have occurred without system interoperability between and amongst all of our train operators sharing the common rail infrastructure with New Jersey Transit. This required teamwork and collaboration with the stakeholder commitments from Amtrak, Conrail, and Norfolk Southern, which you see here today, really did achieve this milestone. We are particularly grateful for Amtrak's support in qualifying New Jersey Transit's vehicles and bringing our boundary locations online. Moving forward, PTC is now an embedded part of rail operations, and Parsons stands ready to continue to support New Jersey Transit, building upon our achievement and our valued partnership. I want to thank Governor Murphy, the Commissioner, Ron Vittori, President Corbett, for all of their leadership in making this a successful mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Great job, man. Congratulations. Say hi to Chuck for me. Terry, thank you. And again, Terry Fetters has been sort of in the family leading this for Parsons, and as I said, he's done it around the world. Brian, I can't make you sit here for almost an hour and not give you a chance to ask a question. So if you've got, I think you're the only reporter here, is that right? Anybody else? What do you got, man? Either way. Can you give me the off and I'll do the, I suspect I know what your off is because you and I talked about it, right? Yeah. So I'll do the off. Kevin and Diane, if you could come up in a second and answer the budget and the cost issues, realities with PTC. I'll take this off just for a sec. And again, folks, we'll be on again at 3 o'clock today with Judy Persichelli and Pat Callahan. and myself, which will be COVID heavy. We're still trying to get to the bottom of what we understand will be 20% reduction in both Pfizer and Moderna vaccine shipments, at least in the near term. This is subject to Moderna's final step of approval, which I believe is pending this evening. I can't give you a crisp answer as to why. I think there's some sense that they wanted to smooth this, and I also can't tell you that this is forever and for always. I spoke to Pfizer at very senior levels yesterday. Frankly, they don't understand this. I think the Pfizer reduction is along the lines of 34%, and the Moderna reduction is a more modest one. But we'll get to the bottom of this, and trust me on this, we will leave no stone unturned to get everybody in this state vaccinated, particularly given where we started with healthcare workers, long-term care residents, staff, and we'll move out from there. So when we have a better answer, I'll get it to you. I don't know the specific Moderna number, but it's a much more modest reduction. The combined blended reduction is 20%. With that, Kevin and/or Diane, could you come up and just talk for a second to Brian's question about what did this cost us? Did it stay within budget, et cetera?
Thank you, Brian. We can get you the detailed breakdown, but overall cost is of the total project is about $500 million. That includes a lot of the cost. More than half of that is our costs of our employees, the time, the testing, the thousands of tests run, so labor costs, et cetera, that are not related to the contract with Parsons Alstom. So when we came in, they were pretty much from the original budget back in 2011, as I recall, it was something like about roughly in the 200 million category. We knew we had already burned through a lot of that, even though only 12% had been installed. That's a question for another day. But so since that, we've had several change orders that brought that up to over $200 million. So for the Parsons Alstom contract. That's most of that money. There was a little bit of federal money, but most of that money came from New Jersey Transit. And Diane gave the breakdown on the budget, from our budget for operating budget. And there's a lot. The heavy component was the capital cost. So, and then last year we made it operational, so some of those costs start becoming into our operation budget. So it switches from the capital budget to the operating budget.
Thank you. Well done, buddy. Thank you. Thank you all. I want to, again, Ron, thank you so much for your leadership in coming. Carolyn, with you as well. We can't thank you enough. Diane and Kevin, certainly. Stephen, to you and your Amtrak colleagues. Terry, to you and yours at Parsons, and to the entire Jerome and the entire family at NJ Transit. This is a huge day for you all, for all of us, a huge day for New Jersey. Christmas comes a week early. New Year's Eve comes 13 days early. Everybody stay safe. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and God bless everybody. Take care.